As weird as this sounds, you know what one of my favorite desserts is at the end of a good meal, a long day, and you just want to relax? A bowl of cereal. I love cereal. Don't get it as much as I used to, especially as a kid, but the biggest reason is there's really, it's not healthy at all. The cereal that we like, it's that sugary, carb loaded, just empty calories is really all it is. But it's just so good sometimes. But that is where Magic Spoon has stepped in and said, you know what? Adults like cereal. Let's make some healthy cereal that actually tastes like cereal, something good, something indulgent. And so they have come up with a zero sugar, high protein, low carb, very tasty cereal. It's keto friendly, it's gluten free, it's grain free, soy free, GMO free, and it comes in 4 different flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. That covers pretty much all the bases of everything that I would indulge in. And so if you're looking for kind of that craving satisfier of having a great bowl of cereal, something I actually just had, but without the guilt attached to it, Magic Spoon is your answer. If you'd like to try some, go to magicspoon.com/ASP for Adventure Sports Podcast and grab yourself a variety pack today. And if you don't absolutely love it, they have 100% money back guarantee. And again, New Year's is coming up. We're all trying to be a new self. Maybe it's a bowl of cereal to start your day that can help you do that. magicspoon.com/ASP. And you can use the code ASP for free shipping. All right, now on to the adventure.
It's hard to imagine our life not living like this because it's brought us so much joy and so close as a family that it would be very, I think, challenging for us to go back to a stationary life. And that was one of our fears when we were in Asia and COVID hit, was like, okay, what do we do now?
I'm really excited for today's episode. I'm confident that it's going to plant some seeds in somebody's life, in somebody's head, in their heart. This episode is going to start a conversation. Somebody's going to be starting a conversation with a spouse or with a friend or with a partner or with their kids after listening to this. So the reason I say that is because that's exactly what happened to Jessica and Will. They were living a pretty normal life in Boston, as they'll tell you. And as you can see on their website, worldtowning.com. And basically, they wanted to experience the world, but didn't know how, but started making plans and started telling their kids and really just started talking about it, started learning about it. How do we make our life more remote? And how do we figure out how to live and work in different parts of the world and experience those parts of the world and have a family at the same time? Something that I think a lot of us think about, but feels too overwhelming to try to tackle ourselves. As you'll hear, it took them over a decade to kind of figure this out. So it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, but you can start planning for things now. You're not going to save up retirement, for instance, this year necessarily, but you start planning now so that when the time comes, you're ready for it. That's just an example. And you can do the same thing with adventures, I've learned, especially with a busy life. That's kind of the only way, or one of the only ways you can make them possible. Anyway, back to the story. So Jessica and Will decided to leave their lives, figure it out, and they're going to get into more detail about that. But just some of the stuff that happened the first year, they decide to dip their toes by living in Costa Rica for a year, then in Ecuador for another year, and then in France for 9 months. And did some incredible things while they were there. They did tons of hiking, exploring, went to other areas near those countries, and started realizing that they didn't have to have a hometown, really anywhere in particular, but the whole world could be their town, and they could have hometowns all over the place. And so that's what led them to continue the lifestyle by jumping in an RV for a little while and explored literally every country in Europe. And then settled down a little bit more in France and wanted to go to Asia. COVID then hit, and now they are taking their talents to the seas, to live in a sailboat full time, which is going to be awesome. They don't really know how to sail, so by this point, this was recorded a few months ago. By this point, they've probably taken a few sailing classes, so we're going to have to check back in with them to see how it's doing. But anyway, they're just filled with wisdom, filled with experience, totally excited. They keep it real, so you know it's not glamorous Instagram van life stuff. It's it's the good and the bad, and like all of our lives, there's a beautiful mixture of both. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you're inspired, and I hope you reach out to them because they run a business. They teach other people how to do this, and I'm sure they'd love to share their wisdom with you. All right, here is the episode. Yeah, first of all, Will and Jessica, thank you for joining us at the Adventure Sports Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're super happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. I know you're not coming from close by necessarily, but your audio is fantastic. Usually there's a delay of some sort, but there's nothing. It sounds like you guys are just right here. Where in the world are you coming from right now?
We are in southern France. We're basically near Montpellier, France. And we are now on board our brand new to us boat where we've only been on board for like 2 months, and we're struggling to sort of learn the boat life, but we're getting there.
How has the adjustment been? Has it been, versus what you thought going into it? Was it more daunting or less daunting, or right about where you thought it would be?
Ooh, okay. So we're 2 months in, and we start sailing lessons in 3 days. So we've only left the dock to take the boat around to the front of the marina to take it to a marina shop for some repairs. I think we were pretty realistic about the amount of work and learning curve that would go into this. This is not our first time jumping into something we know absolutely nothing about. But honestly, no matter how prepared you truly think you are for any new adventure, I still think it's still overwhelming at times. Like I said, we're only 2 months in, and everything that's happening is stuff that we knew about and heard about and were prepared for. But until you're actually in it, and it's, okay, now we really got to do this. It's a totally different ball game. I think we're doing well. I think that the fact that we've had years of experiences of doing different things and learning how to homeschool and learning how to live in an RV and all this kind of stuff has prepared us for this. But I would say we're probably deep in the trenches right now. Wouldn't you say, Will?
Yeah, but we have a lot more elbow room compared to when we lived in the RV.
True.
That,
really? There's more. Well, I guess it is a pretty, what you said, 38 feet?
It's a 38-foot broad blue. Oh, it's a broad blue 38 catamaran. So,
it feels like a palace to us. People are sending us messages saying, oh my gosh, how is a family of 4 ever going to live on such a little puny catamaran? All these other people out there with a family of 4 have these 50, 60 plus foot cats. You're not going to be able to do it. And we're like, wow. But for the first time in 3 or 4 years, we each have our own room. We have our own cabin. We have 2 bathrooms. Like this is a luxury for us. We're loving it.
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
It sure is.
Well, that is too cool. So for listeners, they've heard a little bit about your story in the intro, but for y'all, sailing is new, but this lifestyle of doing something you didn't know much about and had to kind of jump into it, that's not new for you. Could you take us back to, what happened? What were your lives? What were you doing that led to this drastic change in your lifestyle? I think there's just a lot of people out there that are either have always wanted to do that, or COVID and quarantine has kind of spurred on some sort of desire to change drastically their life and the trajectory. So what was it for y'all?
So I'm going to let Will take this one, but I just want to preface it by saying we really did like our life in the United States. We did not leave. We just started our 7th year of living this lifestyle. And we didn't dislike our life. We just wanted more and we wanted to travel. And we are not one of those stories where we decided to do it, sold all of our stuff, and 6 months later we were on the road traveling. It took us a long time and we had a lot to process and a lot of fears to fight through to kind of get to this point. I just wanted to kind of put that out there so people kind of have an idea of how it began for us. And we were not kind of this overnight I guess I don't know if success is the right word, but success travel story. You know, it took a lot of time and processes to get where we are, but I guess it worked out because we're still here. So I'll let Will tell the backstory since he's so good at that and I'm terrible at it.
So essentially, I mean, our launch date was in October of 2014. So we're basically like on the 6-year mark now, which is fantastic because if you were to ask us today whether, or back then, if we would have lasted 6 years, we've been like, gosh, I hope so. But
we wanted to. That was the plan. But, you know, you just never know, right? Do you
right.
plan right? Can you make money? Is everyone going to like it?
But if you were to ask us also on that same day, looking back, 5 years ago, would we have actually gotten to this position in the way that we actually did it? And the answer is no way.
No way.
Because so to sort of give the backstory, like back in 2010, essentially around there, we were living in California. And we were
no, before that. It was before Largo was born. I was pregnant.
So it was like 2006.
Yeah.
2007. We were living in California and we were given a glimpse of what life could be like if we were traveling more, meaning that I was working for a large public accounting firm. And there was a great opportunity for us to go ahead and become expats in a different country. They were going to send us to Spain.
And of course, we were like, what? They're going to pay for housing. They're going to pay for, we had one child at the time. They're going to pay for her school. We're going to have X amount of flights back to the US every year. There's all these benefits. This is the safe way to go. Why not? Who wouldn't do this, right?
Right. Was it like a time frame? Is just like it was basically a best case scenario to try living somewhere else, with kind of the risk off you.
Right. I mean, the risk was zero. The career growth would have been great. Like we were still doing this on the pretense that we were not abandoning our sort of corporate lives. We're just going to do it in a different location. So
a couple of years and then come back.
Right. There was none of this like I'm going to sort of give up on the way we live now and sort of totally reinvent. What we did was say, I'm looking for a vacation and, and let the company pay for it.
It wasn't really a vacation. We were going to be working, but
right. But long story short, it didn't happen. And
it didn't happen again.
And it didn't happen
again.
Right.
Yes.
And we had at this point like the bug in us so badly that we were so ready to go. And we were saying, where do you want to send us? I don't care.
We'll go anywhere.
And eventually we got to a point where we were tired of waiting. And I changed locations for work within the US. I changed companies, and the new company I worked for also had these wonderful opportunities that were dangling in front of me. And here I am trying to go ahead and prove that this is a good move, because when you try to become an expat, you for a company, the costs involved for the organization are depending on who they're sending and if they have a family or not. In our case, since we were a family of 4,
at that point we had added another child, so
right.
2 schools.
So they're on the hook for schooling, they're on the hook for the apartment, so forth and so on. And the bigger your family, the bigger the price tag. And every single time an opportunity came up, they found a different person who might have been a better fit.
Someone with no kids.
Right. Exactly. So we almost said that we've had enough.
Yeah. And we just kind of went about life in Boston. And then we just could not put that desire to live in another country with our kids to bed. Long story short, we came up with a compromise that we would spend a summer in Paris. I had already been working from home. So I would go with the kids and take my business and work from home with the kids for a summer in Paris. And Will would come to visit for 2, 3, 4 week vacation. He said, wait a minute, I want to go too. So he talked to the company and they let him work from his office, the company's office in Paris. And basically, long story short, after that summer in Paris, which was, I don't know, 5 billion things went wrong. Our daughter was hospitalized. Our toilet never worked. We lived in a small, nasty, buggy, hot apartment because that's what was within our budget. And we came back to the United States and said, if they're not going to send us on a corporate expat package, we're going to do this on our own.
So all those things you fell in love with in a way.
You know why? Because we realized that we had a comfortable living and a comfortable house and all the bedrooms, the bathrooms and the basement and all that stuff. We realized we didn't need all that and that the kids really thrived and we thrived as a couple and as a family unit. We just grew and just felt so enriched and alive that we wanted more of that. So we came back and we said, we're going to sell everything and we're going to figure out how to do this on our own. And so we learned about medical insurance. How do we get this while we travel? How do we homeschool? We had no idea how to do that. And just everything that goes along with moving to another country. And we did it. We moved to another country. We set ourselves for 12 months and 13 months later, we moved to Costa Rica. And that is October 6, 2014, where the whole journey started.
October 6, 2014. I got married the next day, and that's been a
Oh,
heck
no
of a journey
way.
too. So no, it's just funny. It was a spur of the moment kind of thing. I think we decided the day before and said, hey, let's go elope. But anyway, that's too cool. So okay, October 6, 2014. You go to Costa Rica. Why Costa Rica? What was it? Just affordability, or just somewhere exotic? What led to that? Because you went from Paris, a place that it sounded crazy, but it sounded like it was pretty life changing in a place you wanted to be. What led you to Costa Rica?
The initial choice was something different. We really wanted to go to Honduras.
No, Guatemala.
Guatemala, and we were bouncing both of them around.
Yeah, Guatemala and Honduras. But I think we landed on Guatemala, and then at the last minute we switched because we got scared.
Someone told us, got to watch out because that whole area is like murder capital of Central America.
Yeah.
And we're like, unknowing of anything that's happening, believing everyone that we were talking to, we were like, oh, we can't go there. Let's go to safe Costa Rica. And so that's where we landed there.
But we wanted Spanish speaking. We wanted affordable cost of living. Although we had vacationed a lot, we hadn't lived long periods of time any place. So we wanted something that wasn't too foreign and didn't take, because we wanted to stack the cards in our favor for this to succeed. Because even though we told everyone we were going for a year, in our heads, we wanted to make this a complete lifestyle change. And in order to do that, we needed to make sure we were set up for success. And now, obviously, looking back on it in hindsight, wow, we did everything we possibly could have done. Except really factor in emotionally how it was going to impact all of us and impact us as a family. And that was a hard transition for all of us. We had a really tough transition to living in Costa Rica, and it was nothing Costa Rica. It was just completely changing our life from everyone working from home, homeschooling, a language. Only Will spoke the language at the time. It was just so completely foreign to us. Now Costa Rica almost feels like being in the United States, but back then it was very, very foreign for us. And we survived.
And we subsequently also visited Honduras and Guatemala, and we realized that there's nothing to be afraid of in the slightest.
Right.
So,
but we were so newbies, we didn't know. At that point, we just didn't know, and we were scared. And I think that's how everyone starts out. I think that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to, your comfort level and things kind of increases, and your level of risk and your level of kind of learning about what is dangerous and what not increases the longer you do this. So we enjoyed our time in Costa Rica. Everyone learned Spanish. I'm still kind of Spanglishy, but everyone else does well. And
it was actually really fun because we almost like label each location while we were doing these like 9 to 12 month stints in different countries. We gave each one a label, and Costa Rica was our year of adventure, we call it, because of the rainforest and because of all of the adventure sports that you can do there. We truly
zip lining and whitewater rafting
and surfing
and I don't remember what it's called, but when you climb up the waterfall. I mean, we surfed, we did all kinds of crazy things there. And it was really, I think it's what helped balance us out through the adjustment, because like I said, it was a really tough adjustment. But the interesting thing is during the whole adjustment, there were tears, and Will and I were just like, how are we ever going to survive this? But not once did I say to him or did he say to me, we made a mistake. Not once, which I find is so interesting, because looking at it now, obviously we've had other transitions since then, and boat life is the biggest transition of ever so far, and we're barely into it. But I'm surprised that transition just didn't, stop us right in our tracks and have us running home, because it was really incredibly tough. But I guess I guess we just wanted it so bad. And we both knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel. We just had to work through, the transitions, which it is when you're changing your lifestyle.
Not telling yourself you made a mistake. That's huge. Were there anything else that y'all did as a couple or as a family to ensure that it didn't become a negative experience in the long run?
Well, one of the things was we never let the kids see us struggling. Will's shaking his head right there, right beside me, because I guess he was going to say the same thing. The children will often take on the attitude of the parent. And we have seen this over and over and over again. If the parent's like, well, I hate Spain, or the Spanish are like this, that attitude transitions to the children. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just giving that as an example. If someone says about, the Danish are this, and it trickles down to the kids get this bad impression, and it starts to ruin the whole energy within the family. So even when Will and I were really struggling, our kids were young when we started out. They were almost 7 and 10. Now it's a little different. We're very honest about the struggles, because as teenagers, we want them to see us struggle through things and work as a team and overcome it, because it'll help them in adulthood. But when they were young, we sheltered them from that. So we just got up and we put a smile on our face. And no matter how awful things had happened, or if the car we just bought broke down on the way home and we had bought a lemon, and what are we going to do now? We just found the joy and the happiness in it and the positive part, and kind of kept that pulling us through. And I think that really, really helped, as well as Will and I think are a really great support system for each other. If one of us is having a bad day, the other one is there to build them up or to say, suck it up, one or the other. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. We're really we're there as an emotional support for each other. And we have to be, we are all each other halves out here. We have a village when it comes to, virtual village, and we have family, but we don't have that village in our backyard. So we have to survive, and we have to make this work together, and we have to be there for each other. And I think that was a huge part of our success. Plus, Will and I don't like to fail. And, as you start out on a new adventure, there's plenty of people saying, oh, you're going to fail. You're ruining your life. You're screwing up your career. Your kids are going to be freaks. So, of course, Will and I are like, no one's going to see us sweat. We're just going to make this happen.
It's interesting. It's interesting
Right?
Because we basically, every single time that we feel like we need to vent, and we try and do that sort of away from the kids as
let's
much
go
as
for
possible.
A walk.
We say, let's go take out the trash. and some
Literally and figuratively.
And sometimes that trash can is a little bit further one day versus another day for some reason. I don't know why, but we get through it, and we talk things out.
Sometimes we take the trash out 10 times a day.
Sure we do.
Sometimes it's weeks.
Sometimes you forget to grab the actual trash.
Right. And you come back and the kids are like, but you forgot the trash. Like, oh yeah, you're right.
Like, no, we didn't.
That's incredible. So a lot this kind of lifestyle, this kind of adventure, it does scare a lot of people, because they think of worst case scenario. I would throw myself into the boat, like, oh, what could happen? What could go wrong? Can you tell us from your experience what has been your worst case scenario situation that actually happened, and how were you able to get through it? Was it as bad as you thought it would be, or did you just kind of manage like we always do?
How long is this podcast? Where do you want to start? You want to start with the robbery?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, and this is already well into it, so we were equipped.
We were several years into it. Our RV got broken into when we were traveling around Europe in an RV for 3 years.
So let's pause for a moment and just fast forward, because one of the things that we've done is that we went ahead and we hopped into an RV for 2.5 years, and we visited every single country in Europe that we could by land. So one of the countries that we popped into
was
early
Belgium.
on was Belgium, and we thought, okay, the home of the European Union.
Let's make some waffles.
Right, the home of waffles and really good beer. What bad can happen here?
We never even thought about stuff like that. We got out of the RV, at least not in Belgium, right? It's like sleepy town there. And so it's very rare that we would leave the RV without all of our editing equipment and computers, because even if we went out for an adventure, we'd often pop into a coffee shop, maybe we'd work, or the kids would have a class or whatnot. This day, we only were in the city just to take the waffle class. So we just brought one little camera with us, and we left everything in the car. And we came back, and we were broken into, and they stole how much? I mentally blocked it out.
About 10,000 euros worth of stuff.
Yeah, it was awful. We cried. We were just like, how can someone do this? We went around to all the people on the street asking, hey, do you know, could you help us? Did you see anything? And we came up short. We had insurance. We're big believers. If you're traveling with a lot of equipment that's your work or your school, get insurance, because that was the best thing ever to have the insurance. We had about 2 weeks before we could replace everything. And we were working a family of 4 with kids in school and us having a business. They would work during the day and we would work at night on those 4 computers. Everything was backed up. Almost everything. We lost just a little bit of footage. That was a pretty traumatic experience. We survived. We learned, I guess, a thing or two. That was pretty bad. What else? We had a fire in the RV. In the middle of the night, it was filled with smoke. Our smoke detectors didn't go off, but we had a hamster, and we're convinced the hamster woke us up. And there was very little damage done to the RV, but it was incredibly alarming to wake up from a dead sleep with a smoke-filled RV. It's just really, really scary. Let's see what else has happened. We've been verbally abused in Norway by a guy on the road that kind of
it's like the best of here.
Right. Well, he asked. I mean, and I don't. The thing is, I don't want to scare everyone that's out there. I mean, we're still here. We're still alive. No one's ever pulled a gun on us. And I think that in contrast to that, all the good things that have happened to us, I could talk for days about all the great things and the kind people and the people that have come to our rescue in situations. But I think it's important to be honest. Do you have anything else? I mean, I'm sure there's more.
There was like early on, we were in Peru and we were in,
that's pretty bad too.
We were on the Inca Trail. So it was like 4 days going
hiking to Machu Picchu.
You traverse this area called Dead Woman's Pass, which sort of takes you up to like 14,200 meters, or to 14,200 feet, not meters. That'd be high. So while we were doing it, it was rainy, it was nasty, and our daughter, who was 11 years old at the time,
I think 11, got a fever.
Right, and this was beyond the point of essentially like no return, where they couldn't.
Right, once you hit a certain point, you have to proceed forward. You can't go back, and we were beyond that point.
Right. And our daughter had like 103 fever, and we could not find a way to bring it down.
We brought it down the first day, but the second day we could not bring it down. And the second day that she had the fever was actually our final day on the hike. So a porter carried her out. He ran ahead with her on his back, and Will ran with them because we didn't want to just send our kid off with someone we didn't know sick. You know, that's a lot of responsibility to put on someone else. Right. And these guys are used to this. They have the lung capacity. They're very fit. Of course, Will is quite fit guy, but he was struggling to keep up with him by the time we all caught up with him.
I'm carrying like a 40-pound backpack.
Will looked so frail and was sweating. And I'm like, gosh, Will, you poor thing. And he wasn't even carrying Avalon, our daughter. So that was scary. I mean, we knew it wasn't going to get out of control, but it's just scary when you have a child that's ill when you're traveling. I mean, we've since had a lot of illnesses on the road, had medical care in numerous countries, and we're much more equipped for dealing with things like that. But that was quite scary because you're in the middle of nowhere and you have no resources. What else has happened? I think that's probably enough, right?
I think that's good.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up those examples and those points because the worst case scenario, the worst things that have happened to you, all those things that happened are absolutely things that could happen each and every day in a quote normal life. I mean, I've had things stolen out of my truck right in my driveway. I've had things, we've seen homes burn. Everyone's seen a house on fire, a car on fire, like that happens. And even getting, fever or something out on a trail or hiking in your backyard, stuff like that can happen. So the fact that through all the experiences and all the traveling and all these, huge leaps of faith you've taken, those are the worst things that can happen. Those are things that you can, in a lot of ways, happen just as often in normal life. So that's actually really encouraging that that's been the worst of it,
Absolutely.
Versus what people's imaginations, I'm sure, would tell you when you first started.
Right. We've never had anyone pull a gun on us. We've never been kidnapped. Gosh, knock on wood. But anything like that. And people, when we've been in these really traumatic experiences, people have come to our rescue when the van, was smoky in the campsite, when we were broken into, when our daughter was
Peru. Yeah.
Even in Peru,
when we got back to the hostel after we were done, on Christmas Day, because this was over the holidays, on Christmas Day,
2 more members in the family got sick. So we had
right,
3 members of the family sick at this point.
and the front desk of the hostel called us a doctor, and
And
he showed up, sort of made a house call essentially, and he was wonderful. He was not annoyed because it was Christmas,
Yeah.
and the
Took great
cost was
care of
very
everyone.
affordable, and so it wasn't necessarily like going, I'm going to stick it to you. It's like, how can I help you, and what can we do to make this better? It just worked out, and that was I think that was almost at that point the defining moment for us to realize that there's nothing that can't really go that wrong.
Yeah, I think medical is something that even with our clients as well, people are very, very scared about medical and medical care. And I just, I don't want to harp on it too much because it's really, unless you have obviously a pre-existing condition that needs constant care and is a bit volatile and excuse me, all that kind of stuff, that's a different situation. But if you're healthy, you can get medical care equivalent to the US, in many cases better and definitely less expensive across the globe. I mean, at least any place that we've ever been and we've had an issue. Obviously, we educate ourselves where we're going, and if we need a certain vaccine to protect ourselves, or what kind of vitamins we should be taking and whatnot. But overall, we've had amazing experiences with medical care, and now that we're on our 7th year of this, we've had a lot of medical stuff done in different countries that we've had to have done along the way, and it's really worked out for us.
Alrighty, let's take a quick message break and hear from one of our sponsors. With the new year right around the corner, it's time to start planning some new adventures. And one of the most important things you need to do is make sure you're staying hydrated. And that is where Hydrant comes in. It's a refreshing drink mix powder made with 4 key electrolytes: sodium, potassium, magnesium, and zinc. It's made with real fruit juice powder, no artificial sweeteners, none of that garbage, no nonsense. It's all science. And actually, for an extra boost, try new Hydrant Immunity, which contains vitamins A, B12, B6, C, and D, along with ginger and turmeric. Water meets wellness in a vitamin-packed drink mix that you can drink cold or hot for these chillier months. If you'd like to try Hydrant today and make sure you have it ready for your next adventure, you can get 25% off by going to drinkhydrant.com/ASP and using ASP at checkout. That's hydrant.com/ASP and enter promo code ASP for 25% off your first order. Hydrant, where water meets wellness. Ah. All right, now back to the show. That's so great to hear because, it's like all these issues, even with all your stuff stolen, it's like insurance. Insurance was in place. You were out without it for 2 weeks, but that's just still so much better than it could have been. And if that's as bad as it gets, that's terrible and traumatic, like you said, but I hear it all the time right here in your own town, right here in your own backyard. That exact same thing can happen. Why not put yourself in an incredible experience, learning so many things if life is still going to happen anyway? Can you tell us maybe the first time, or if there was a day or a moment early on that made you both think or individually think, we made the right decision to do this?
There's moments and days like that all the time. And for me, the most profound moments and days are the impact it has on our children and our family. How we've been able to, the goal when we set out to do this was to educate them out in the world, about the world, spend more time as a family, let them grow up to be their authentic self without a lot of pressure of outside sources and media and all that kind of stuff, as well as to live more minimalist and focus on making memories. So that's been one of the most amazing aspects, as well as the people. The people we meet along the way are so good and so kind to us. And I don't even know how to put it into words, but meeting people from other countries and other cultures who are warm and kind and open their homes and their hearts and their stories and their culture and share it with us is heartwarming. It's just fabulous.
But if we were to put an actual moment to it,
you got a moment
in my mind.
See, I'm the idealist and Will's the realist. If you haven't noticed already, he's like, I need a date. We're going to get the date out here, Jessica. Answer the guy's question. Okay, go ahead, Wolf.
If I were to put a moment to it, it's actually pretty simple for me. It actually happened only a week into when we left. And this is when we first landed in Costa Rica, and we were basically we're outside of San Jose. So, we were not exactly hanging out by the coast. And the reason why we chose that area was because our son went to a French immersion school, and the only French school that there was in Costa Rica was in the capital. And the capital is not exactly the most glamorous area. It's not where sort of, all the expats live, or
but it's
where
culturally
you go,
rich.
but it's culturally super rich. So
I know,
on that first weekend,
what you're going to say. This is a great one. You're so smart.
So on the first weekend we were there, thank you. We went to a market, like a normal Saturday market. When we say a market, it's like outside fruits vendors and veggies. And, you walk around and it's like a farmer's market, but it's a normally occurring farmer's market that occurs all the time. And this is how, everyone seems to get their food, because supermarkets are for the packaged goods that you cannot get locally grown. And so we went there and, you can spend $15 and walk away with like a massive sack full of fruits and veggies, but nevertheless, bargains aside, that day there was a group of kids dancing. I mean, it was like a formal group. They had like outfits and so forth and so on.
They were doing traditional Costa Rican dance, and they were doing a performance in the square.
And our daughter said to us, boy, that sounds like a lot of fun. I would love to do it. And at that moment, sort of when we watched the entire performance, and then we ended and we walked over to the person who was organizing it.
Now, mind you, at this time, Will was the only one who spoke Spanish, and our daughter just knew how to say like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Right. That's about it.
And we started talking to her and said, well, would this be something that, our daughter can participate? We're going to be in Costa Rica for almost a year. So it's not like we're going to walk in for a weekend and sort of like walk away.
We said she doesn't speak the language.
And the instructor pretty much said it doesn't matter if she doesn't speak Spanish as long as she speaks dance.
Dance is a universal language,
right.
Baby.
and meanwhile, our daughter never took a dance lesson in her life. So.
I think she was in ballet once when she was little, and she was the girl over in the corner playing with the door handle. Like, just no interest in ballet at all.
But this group took us in, and
yeah, they became family.
We became like those Americans.
And it wasn't just like a once a week dance class. It was practices a couple times a week. And then there were, I don't know what you would call it, big performance things on the weekend where we all got in a bus together and drove a couple hours. And it was like a whole day of dance festivities. And these people were just so kind. And we wanted, Will was so funny because he was really the translator between all the women, so it was like, I would say something, Will would translate to another lady, and then we'd all be translated back, because I couldn't speak the language at the time. And it really was, you're right. Well, that was a defining moment because we realized that people are good. People are welcoming. People want to share their story. They want to learn your story, and they just want connection. And people are like that all over the world, whether you can communicate with them or not. And now we have Google Translate. So if we can't communicate, we break that baby out.
The experiences, the things that pop up that you never can plan for. You know what I mean? You're basically building this framework and for this canvas, and you don't know what's going to be put on it, but you put that frame in place. You put that structure in place for all these incredible experiences to happen. What would you say is the biggest misconception with your lifestyle that you hear a lot from folks when they ask questions, or the feedback you get maybe from even your own families? What would you say the biggest misconception is?
I think the biggest misconception, or the biggest phrase that we get, and so we can lead to the misconception. The biggest phrase we get is "must be nice."
Yeah.
And with the thought that we're just on this perpetual vacation, and we're out and just seeing the sights and never having a concern in the world, and
that money is of no concern of ours, and I think that kind of leads into what I was going to say, that the misconception is that you need to be incredibly wealthy to live like this. And of course, we meet people that are traveling like this, that are wealthy, have extensive trust funds, or they sold an app and made 100 million or whatever. But that is so incredibly rare. Almost everyone we know that are friends of ours, that are travelers, or people we've met along the way, work really incredibly hard to maintain this lifestyle. they make sacrifices. They all sleep in one room for years. They pick up work where they can, or they just live incredibly frugal. They cut corners where they can to live like this. And I think that that's a really important takeaway and a misconception. I'm glad you asked this question, because people look at it and, like Will said, they say it must be nice, as if Will and I have done something miraculous that no one else can do. And it's just not true. Will and I are just regular people like everyone else. I mean, if you ask our moms, they're going to say we're special. But outside of that, we're just like, we're just like everyone else. We don't have a ton of money. We do work our butts off. We work really, really hard to maintain and to be able to keep this lifestyle. But we didn't do anything miraculous. We just fought through the fears and decided to take the plunge. So I think definitely finances are a misconception.
We don't quit.
We don't quit. We don't. I think another misconception too is that people seem to think like, oh, I couldn't spend all that time with my kids and I couldn't homeschool them and stuff. At the end of the day, it's all just a matter of doing the research and figuring it out, and then rolling with it. Will loves to say, if someone else can figure it out and do it and learn it, then we can do it too. And that's kind of our philosophy, through this whole lifestyle, is that there was a time we didn't know how to travel. We didn't know how to get Wi-Fi in the country. We didn't know how to homeschool. We didn't know how to fill out medical forms in foreign languages. And we learned all of that. So there is this misconception that people think it's not possible for them. And how could they do it? And we must be so different. And we're really not. We're no different. We meet people like us all the time traveling. We're all the same at the end of the day. We're all kind of connected with this deep passion to kind of live authentically and live through travel. And it connects us all. But we're no different than anyone else at home that's having some adventure in a stationary life. Any other misconceptions, Will?
And the misconception that we're always happy.
That's a great one. A misconception that we're always happy, and that this is my favorite, that our kids never fight, and that Will and I never fight.
Right.
Like I said, we have our laundry stinks, and we fight, and we have bills to pay, and some months we run out of money, and we're just like everyone else. Like, it's just not. Sometimes people think these things on social media, and they think, well, their kids must be different, or they must be a different couple. I think the only thing different is Will and I have really learned to laugh through a lot of it, just be like, I can't believe this is happening. Let's just laugh it off,
I can totally see those. We had an author on the show a few years ago, Rolf Potts. He wrote one of my favorite books called Vagabonding. Yeah. And really the whole premise of the show, or the whole premise of the book, is built on that must be nice mentality. And he's like, no, I scrubbed toilets for 9 months to be able to afford this. Sorry.
Right.
Little one.
No, we love hearing baby sounds. That's totally fine with us. Yeah, it's true, right? I mean, I'm not going to go into all the things we've done, but we've made some sacrifices that our really close friends have gone, I would never do that. You guys are insane. I mean, even down to just in July, we were in Japan, and we ended up staying there longer than planned because of COVID, and Japan's an expensive country. So in order to get scuba certified, we had to make the compromise with our housing. So we went and lived in a surf hostel in one small room, the four of us, for a month. And it was kind of crazy, but that gave us the ability to be able to afford to get scuba certified. So we make those sacrifices along the way.
Absolutely. It isn't an infinite budget, an infinite everything time, an infinite amount of time to make choices, or abilities even. You're limited in ways, and you make it happen. And what the reality becomes, people don't see all the decisions behind it, all the conversation behind it, all the work behind it. Could we touch on that briefly? I think people would probably be interested to know, like budget-wise, what do you work remotely? How does that work? How do you at least make money? Maybe not, the details of your budget, but what is work does it look like for y'all?
Do you want to give the history?
It's been
you want to start? You want to start with the beginning?
Evolving story for us. So when we left, we basically left with myself leaving my former company, or the company I worked for, and not having an income on my end. And Jessica had her clients that she worked on as a graphic designer. So, we knew that we were going to a quote unquote low cost location. So, we were concerned about money, but we knew that, that we would find a way. Having just left a career where your skills are fresh, I was able to eventually find remote work as an accountant, and that worked out okay. And then eventually my old company called me back and said that, we don't mind if you live where you live, just, provide us with your time and we can do the whole thing virtually. And
And that was our nice, comfortable income for the first 3 years.
that was our nice, comfortable income for the first 3 years.
Then we had a crazy idea.
And then we thought it'd be a good idea to help people do what we do.
Yeah.
And
So we started our own business, and we started a coaching business where we coach people on all the logistics to become full-time travelers. If you want to go for a year or you want to go forever, just to work through all the logistics, the housing, the medical, the tech, the visas, all that stuff, because that 12 months or actually 13 months we spent planning, we almost gave up so many times because it was so hard to live in our day life and have a foot in another world we wanted to be living in, and then parties and schooling and commitments and having to plan at night. So we felt that everything we'd learned along the way would be of value to people. So we started our business, World Tanning, and developed, it was a coaching business initially. And then I guess it was about a year into it, maybe a year and a half, we opened a segment of our trip because people were saying, of our company, people were saying they wanted to travel with us and travel the way we travel, which is we try to stay away from the super touristy spots and meet with locals and then, hang with them and learn from them. And our way of travel kind of takes into a deeper, more humanitarian side of travel rather than just checking things off the box. And so we developed group trips at that point, and they were doing really well. And then after, 3 years having our business, we were actually, 2 to 3 years in the business. You don't see a lot of income at that point. We lived frugal and we had money in savings, so we were okay. And we were starting to see kind of, okay, this is going to be our profit year. We're going to do really well. And then COVID hit and we had to cancel all of our trips. So, and that since then we're back to living incredibly frugal and being very careful with our money. We had some money in savings again as well. And we're not giving up on the group trips or the coaching, but we all know right now no one's doing that. So we're pausing it now and revamping things so that when people do want to travel again, our door is going to be open with like 5 to 10 really amazing trips that people can go on. And I'm pretty optimistic that people are going to seize the moment because now they're realizing how fragile it is and it can be taken away. So to answer your question, we've had different ways that we've made income along the way. And when that income has been on a pause or dried up or we've been in transition, we really tighten the belt. We always make sure we have money in savings and we live incredibly frugal to kind of get us through those rough patches. And right now we're, to be totally transparent, we're in one of those rough patches. We're not alone, right? There's plenty of people in our situation who are struggling with their income or their work because of COVID.
Absolutely. 6 years in, do you feel that those challenges, you're better equipped for them or you're more fatigued to them?
Well, we're older.
I think we're at the point where, when the challenges do arise, we don't take them lightly, but we sort of still have this. I think we have enough behind us at this point to realize that nothing lasts forever.
Right.
And it's easy to go ahead and get sucked up in a moment because a moment feels like a lifetime, but we also can stop and take a pause and reflect upon what we have done and realize that, this is not forever. And we can sort of take solace in the fact that we've overcome so much more, that this hopefully, and I'm going with air quotes, but hopefully is just a drop in the bucket.
And when he says this is not forever, he's not talking about the travel life. He's talking about, the downtimes. The downtimes, like in situations like COVID. And people's incomes being affected. Like we don't believe it'll last forever. And Will and I are very used to kind of, we don't give up, and we are continually reinventing. So we know that if COVID was to last for another decade, which gosh, I really hope it doesn't because I'd hate to see so many people dying, and suffering. But if it was, we would figure out something else. Our number one priority is to continue this lifestyle and living like this because we love it and our kids love it and they're thriving in it. So we will always find a way to reinvent to be able to continue to do this.
Have a BLT the Carl's Jr. way for just $2.99 with charbroiled beef, creamy ranch, and more beef. The new BLT Ranch Double Cheeseburger for just $2.99. Part of charbroiled double deals at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. Offer valid for limited time at participating Carl's Jr. restaurants. Price and participation may vary. Tax not included.
PPG, the paint pros know and have trusted for over 135 years, has added something new to the mix. An extended lineup of PPG products now at the Home Depot, like PPG Speed High, Multi-Pro, and Breakthrough. In stock, available for easy pickup. Or, to make things even better, we can deliver right to the job site. A new lineup of PPG products, ready to go, ready to work, available now from the Home Depot. How doers get more done. U.S. only.
Would the attitude of the kids change that? How have they basically kind of absorbed this lifestyle, and how is their, because 6 years for a kid is a long time in as far as development and stages, and especially teenagers or approaching teenagers. How have they been able to handle this?
So our philosophy has always been that if at any point they consistently are unhappy, then we reevaluate and we come up with a new plan that's a compromise. And when I say consistently, like everyone has bad days, right? Like Will might be today like, oh God, I hate this. Or maybe a kid hates it for one day. But overall, they absolutely love this lifestyle. And if we could see one of them just having like a bad week or something, we'll sit and say, do we need to change gears on anything? Your schooling, our lifestyle, anything like that. And then we kind of talk through things. And it never comes down to the lifestyle. They really, really like the lifestyle a lot. I think in any situation, there's trade-offs, right? So there's things that they do miss or think they're missing out on, and things that obviously kids in stationary life are missing out on. But if either one of them were unhappy, or if Will was unhappy, if I was unhappy, we would not continue to keep that person in an unhappy situation. We would not stop completely. We'd come up with a compromise.
Right. So to give you an example, when we moved, when we left to Costa Rica, we were homeschooling our daughter from moment one. She was in traditional schooling all the way through until the moment we did leave. So
fifth grade, yeah.
Through fifth grade, right.
Was it fourth or fifth?
Well, it's starting fifth grade.
Yeah.
And so she started fifth grade with homeschooling. And so she had a taste of what life was like in traditional schools. And when we went to Costa Rica, we started with homeschooling with her, but we continued on sending our son to a traditional school so that he can get sort of an equal experience. But in his case, it would be in a different country. So they both did sort of normal schools, I guess, until
end of fourth grade.
The end of fourth grade. When we arrived in France, our daughter had already done, at that point, 2 years of homeschooling, and she came up to us and said, I want to go back to a regular school,
I want to try what middle school is like. I want a locker, and I want to change classrooms. And
we said, fine,
Yeah.
In fact, we were like, we can use a little time off during the day to get work done.
I really didn't want her to go. I didn't think it would be a positive thing for her, but I never, ever, ever told her that. Never, because I thought that it really needed to be her decision. And I didn't want to say no and then ever come back 2 years later and say, well, you said, and look, you ruined my life. Da, da, da. She will tell you she didn't like it, but she did enjoy the year. She made friends. She learned a lot about the bureaucracy in the school system here, and she came out of it going, okay, I don't ever want to go back to traditional school again. And that was her choice. And since then, she's never wanted to be in a traditional school again. And her brother has never expressed interest, because last year would have been his year if he wanted to try out traditional school after 2 years of homeschooling. He's like, no way, I don't want to do it. We give them, the thing I think that really makes this work for us is that we operate like a democracy. And when they were first little and we started, we didn't operate like a dictatorship, but they didn't really get a voice in what we were doing on very simple things like, what are we going to have for dinner? Or what, were we going to go zip lining, or were we going to go whitewater rafting? But when it came down to financial decisions and which countries we were going to live in, they did not get a voice. They were too young to understand. However, when we moved to France, they were old enough to understand, and we gave them a voice. And so we let them choose where we would move after Ecuador. We gave them two countries, France and Spain. We let them decide on their own. They picked Spain. They picked France. Will and I wanted Spain, but we still went with France, and they never knew what we wanted because we let them make that decision. Then we gave them 2 cities in France, and thankfully they picked the same city, and we ended up moving to that city. So we've always involved them since they were old enough to understand finances and stuff like that. We've involved them in the decision making, which I think has made them really enjoy it, because as teenagers, right, they want freedom, they want a voice. And there's certain things we can't give that in. So when we can give it, we really embrace it. And it's really made it work for them quite well.
It sounds like a great balance, an entire lifestyle of balance, more so than, a traditional lifestyle. But being able to give them that freedom, I mean, how cool is that? Hey, where's the family going to live? This is in y'all's hands. That's a really cool thing to be able to do. And something you can't, if you're not able to be that mobile and able to make decisions like that. So I know with teaching and with coaching other families or folks that want to live this lifestyle, I'm interested to hear how the appetite was for that. If you had a lot of takers, or if you noticed there are a lot of people out there that are wanting to do this. I know that has been dampened quite a bit with COVID. What are you looking forward to? What are your plans that you do have in place, and the things that you're getting ready to do?
Well, let's see here. This weekend
on Sunday.
Okay, I know you're on a boat right now. That's going to be.
Should we break it down by the hour?
Exactly. We're going off for our first of sort of I guess call it day skipper courses. The RYA, Royal Yacht Association, is a UK outfit. They have a learn to sail course. It sounds so like going to summer camp, but no, this is like real like navigation and charts and so forth and so on.
I hope it's easy like summer camp. I don't think it's gonna be.
And we're gonna have a instructor living with us for almost 10 days. And we're going to learn everything we need to learn so that we can be certified. Because right now, although we do have the boat and we do have insurance, our insurance carrier says you cannot actually go outside of your boat without sort of a competent skipper. And right now we are not one. So
yeah, I wouldn't want to go out right now.
Yeah,
we don't know what we're doing. So
if you want to ask us within 2 weeks' time, then we can say we're going to sail as confident as possible, and our eventual plan is to sail around the Med for this winter / next summer, and as our confidence grows, we're going to sort of continue to be worldwide sailors for now until sort of we can start doing trips again.
Yeah, that's the plan, and in there once COVID is over, like Will said, we'll have trips in there, several a year, and wherever we land with the boat during, our year, when if we're in cyclone season or hurricane season, we'll get off the boat and go do some other land adventures, because our time in Asia was really cut short because of COVID. So we want to explore Asia more. We kind of had this all these other dreams and things that we want to do. We want to bike through the Middle East, and we want to explore more of Africa and more of South America. So we have kind of this whole list of things that we want to do. And we'll just do it kind of, if we can't do it by way of the boat, then we'll, dock the boat and then take off for a couple of months and go, do that adventure and then kind of come back. But there's no plans in the near future to kind of stop this lifestyle. I can't, it's hard to imagine our life not living like this, because it's brought us so much joy and so close as a family that it would be very, I think, challenging for us to go back to a stationary life. And that was one of our fears when we were in Asia and COVID hit, was like, okay, what do we do now? What do we do? We definitely, we're going to have to not be traveling, because you can't really travel the way we want to travel this time. What are we going to do? And that, having those conversations was really hard and incredibly scary. Just as scary as people are like, wow, now I got to work from home and I got to remote school my kid. Like, everyone's going through these transitions that are really scary, and kind of we're no different than anyone else, So the idea is hopefully to continue to proceed, living like this as COVID goes away and the world goes back to, the way it was before, or a better version of the way it was before, I guess.
There you go. That's the attitude right there. Better version than what it was before. We've already seen an uptick in adventures and stories to talk about because of COVID.
I think, don't we realize kind of the fragility of life when things like this happen. And we have to, buying a boat in the middle of COVID was the scariest thing I think Will and I have ever done. I was really, really scared. I'm not so scared now, but because everything is so fragile, and we looked at each other and we said, but this is what we can't do. We can't stop growing and learning and developing new skills because something is scary, be it COVID, be it, we're not 21 anymore, whatever the case may be. We have to keep kind of moving forward and growing and learning. And now 2 months into it, I'm so glad we did it. Like, you got to keep the adventure alive in your life, whatever that is. Like if you want to start a homestead, or if you want to go hike for 6 months, whatever the case, or you want to buy a boat, whatever the case may be, you can't stop kind of having those adventures and learning, because that's when kind of life becomes complacent and other depression and all that other kind of stuff sets in.
Oh gosh, y'all have spoken to just so many incredible lessons and principles. Last question before we kind of plug everything, and thank you for being on. Does this feel, what was the decision behind choosing a boat versus continuing on land? Does a boat give you maybe more access to more places more often? What was that thought process? Because you spent a lot of time in an RV. Did it just seem more of a beneficial thing in the long run to be on water?
Our thought about being on a boat was always in play all along. When we actually left for Costa Rica, for the first location that we went to, we always had in our mind that the boat was going to be the end game. When COVID happened, we realized that there was going to have to be a pause, some type of pause that we had to sort of factor into, because we could not stay in a particular country, as long as we wanted to, because of visa issues. We're fortunate enough in our case that we actually have long stay visas for France, just because of the time that we spent here, and we've had the ability to renew our French visa every year for the last 4 years. So when it was time to leave Japan after 6 months, when we realized that none of the borders were opening, we had to make a decision, and the decision was either to go ahead and find another country to go to that we can explore and sort of start again and sort of get the juices flowing and sort of just like figure out what the culture is like, or we can actually be more, I guess, strategic on this one. Because if we were to continue traveling, then we'd be always looking at the news going, who's open now, who's open now, who's open now. And quite frankly, with what we were seeing, we just didn't want to play that game of Russian roulette of what country we can go to, and then play the 3-month visa game and then sort of, jump to another place.
And as spontaneous as our lifestyle seems, Will and I have always kind of had a game plan of what's the next year looks like, the next 2 years, the next 3 years. So we weren't particularly comfortable doing what Will said, like hanging out in the country going, can we leave? Can we go to the next place? What's Nate next? Because that brings us a bit out of our comfort zone. And also from, a financial standpoint, that can be very detrimental to your budget. So
right. And then it led us to the decision of, well, we can do one of two things. We can either go back to France, because we have, the access to return. And at that point, France was allowing people to enter into France if they're coming from select countries, and one of those was Japan. So that gave us an easy in. Or we could have gone back to the U.S. And we with the way things were going on, this was already now in June. With the way things were happening with COVID in the U.S., we realized that if we went back to the U.S., there was little opportunity to leave if we got the urge to, just because of the way that sort of, immigration policies have been sort of migrating to the fact that they were closing borders to the U.S., because of the current state of the infections. So, we said, let's just go to France, because if anything happens, we can still go back to the U.S. and go from there. And so once we landed in France, we had this eminent idea that we're going to buy a house.
Yeah, a fixer house. That was what we were going to do. That's it.
Right. And we said, let's go ahead and get, 4 or 5 on the docket. Before we left Japan, we made calls with real estate brokers, and we had, a whole bunch that we had planned to look at. And then all of a sudden there was a listing for a sailboat that showed up on Jessica's Facebook feed, and, it piqued our interest, because
It was a really good deal.
It was a great deal. And so we thought to ourselves, it must be too good to be true, but let's just go ahead and sort of do a little digging on this one. And, for some reason, I don't know what, call it just life meant to be, but it turned out to be everything we wanted it to be at the price that we had prayed for.
Yeah. And in a country which we're quite comfortable kind of being hunkered down here for 6 months to a year, whatever it takes. And when we were leaving Japan, our daughter said, you know what, we're not the type of family that can just sit in a rental apartment in France for 6 months, a year and a half to wait to do our life. That's not going to work for us, and it's definitely not going to help our mental state. We need a project. And that's kind of how the house came out. Will and I, in our younger years, had done some home remodeling and selling and all that kind of stuff. And we thought, you know what, let's teach the kids how to do this. And so that was the plan. That was going to be our project through COVID. And, the boat was, like Will said, always the end game, but it wasn't something we were ready for right now. But when it came across our radar, we said, well, why not learn to sail during COVID? I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world, right? I mean, if a lockdown happens and we know how to sail, we can sail out for the day and come back into the marina, and we're learning a new skill at the same time as, we're kind of a bit, I don't know, on a pause from traveling.
It's just a more expensive RV with colossal boat repair costs.
Right.
I've heard.
Will, honey, please don't hold back, honey. Please don't hold back. Will always be a recovering accountant. So it's always coming down to the numbers and the budget, and he can get a little cranky at times. But so that's kind of how the boat came to be. Like, it was always part of the end game. I think I don't want to say it would have never happened, but in our current situation, if COVID hadn't happened, I wonder if we would have kept kicking the can, because it is a huge risk. It is a big expense. And I was really never 100% on board because it scared me, the learning curve and the financial part of it and everything. So someone, in the travel gods kind of put it in front of my face on the Facebook feed. And I actually told Will about it instead of just breezing by it. And here we are now on a sailboat in the south of France, learning to sail starting on Sunday. So crazy things happen, right? You got to seize the moment, right? And just keep going for it.
Gosh, where can people find out more? Where can they learn from you? In the meantime, as folks are itching to get ready to do something or planning to do something, maybe they're not saying I need to leave now, but you know what? My family and I, we want to start doing something different. Maybe it is what you're doing. Maybe we're going to start budgeting for it or saving for it or getting our house ready to sell or something. How can folks find out more about you and get in touch?
Yeah, so we share we put a lot of effort into our YouTube channel. And so with that, right now we're getting into high gear of sort of the sailing. And for the most, if you want to sort of put a timeline as to our posting schedule into YouTube, we've always been usually about a month or two behind, just because we're always constantly on the move. But now on the boat,
we're kind of current.
We're kind of current. So this is a first for us. We're pretty excited about that. So
we share kind of the good and bad and the ugly of full-time travel, and we really try to be as open and honest as possible so people can get a really clear understanding what this lifestyle is all about. And you can find us. We're World Towning on all social media as well as on YouTube. And it, we basically, our philosophy is, creating, living the world and creating mini hometowns, hence the World Towning, wherever we go, connecting to the culture and being good people and, all that kind of stuff. So we do our best to share it on the vlogs.
And then our ultra current stuff is stuff that we share on Instagram. So
right.
The stories.
The day-to-day stuff. Like if you want to see me out hosing down the deck and being really kind of cranky this morning because the wind blew all kinds of dirtiness all over the deck I just cleaned, that's the kind of stuff we put on Instagram. Like, I'm not always cranky, but today I was. So yeah. So, those of you who are listening, reach out to us. Start planning now. It took Will and I 7 years to get to this point. So even if you're saying 10 years down the line, there's no reason why you shouldn't start kind of thinking about it, talking about it as a family. I'll kind of end with this, and it just kind of came into my mind, is that our kids, if you have kids and you're like, I don't know if they're going to be on board or whatnot, our kids only heard us talking about, we're going to go travel, we're going to go live in other countries. basically since our son was born, and we didn't go until he was almost 7. So people are like, well, how did you convince them to go? We're like, well, that's all we talked about. They thought that was just a normal way of life and that everyone did it. So I think it's really important to kind of get the kids, even if they're a little involved and inspired, and get them excited and help them do research and maybe cook meals from different countries you want to explore, the year up until when you're going to go, so that everyone kind of is on board and you're having this experience together. I think one of the things that Will and I really failed in when we were in the planning process is finding joy in the journey. And to this day, I still wear a necklace that my mom got me because she could see the whole process of planning to get to where we are to when we were launching was hard, and she could see us not enjoying it. And a lot of the joy is in the journey. It's not in the end game. So find joy in the journey.
Those sayings, those things we hear all the time, they work. We just got to put them into practice, got to actually do them. So, well, thank y'all for being an example of going after it, making it happen. You might not feel like leaders or inspiration at times, but you've been out there 6 years. That's 6 years. A lot of us haven't done anything or haven't done what we've been talking about for so long. So congratulations on recently hitting that milestone, and on your next adventure. We're going to be following you, and we'll keep you updated on when this episode comes out, and if we can have you back on again at some point. Maybe after you get proficient at selling, we'll come and talk about that.
That might be really fun, actually, and maybe we'll sound a little more confident at that point.
I have no doubt that y'all can achieve anything you want to. I mean, you've already proved it. So
thank you so much for having us. It really, really was amazing that you had us. You had some great questions, and I love that you're encouraging people for more adventure in their life in all kinds of different capacities. I think that's really, really, really important. And as we kind of age, sometimes we forget that, and we have to keep having those adventures.
We're 100%. Everything from being, camp in your backyard this weekend to set a budget to move your family across the world. Like it's all from the same cloth. So get out there and do it. All right, y'all. Well, thank you. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
With no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, banking with Capital One is like the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Charles Barkley in a pickup game.
We'll take Barkley.
Ha! First pick. Sorry, kids.
Yep, even easier than that. And with our top-rated app, you can bank anytime, anywhere, making Capital One an even easier decision.
Okay, here's the plan. Pass me the ball every time.
This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
New consumer accounts only. Approval required. Terms apply. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.